London, 1770. Great Britain is the mightiest empire in the world. Britannia rules the waves. Britannia is also in crippling amounts of debt. The British are spending over half of their national budget on interest payments. No country on earth today spends even half that much. Things had gone from bad to worse in 1754 when George Washington went over to talk with the French about maybe getting the hell out of British territory, and France said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you think you should own this land. Why didn't you say so? We'll just give up this entire area we discovered and charted. We'll pack up all of our businesses and hand over all our military investments." Thus beginning the very expensive French and Indian War. This war was a huge win for Britain's North American colonists. The French were completely kicked off the continent. All of Canada fell under British domain, and American settlers were free to expand as far west as the Mississippi River, whether there be Native Americans there or not. Britain, who paid for the whole operation, wants to see the colonists chip in financially and passes a bunch of taxes on the American colonies, who erupt in cries of no taxation without representation. So things in America are looking a little bit iffy, but it's fine. At the moment, Spain seems like a bigger problem than America, and a bigger problem than that is the debt. So when the time comes to pick a new prime minister in 1770, that's the public's biggest concern, and King George III knows just the guy. Meet Lord North, a member of King George's Privy Council and his personal friend. Lord North is a lot of things. He's well-educated and quick-witted. When he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, he started making a lot of good progress on paying off the national debt without even raising taxes by instituting a national lottery. He's firm on America. Some people in Parliament were saying, "Our American brothers are ill-tempered, but that is the fault of our own injustices. Let us sheathe our sword in its scabbard, not in the bowels of our countrymen. Colony's rights." My good sir, a colony's right to what? To representation. Okay, yes, but if we give them representation, they'll vote not to be taxed, right? My friends, before America can learn to love us, she must learn to fear us. Grr! Prime Minister, the Americans pay for their citizenship. They deserve representation. Let me put this into terms you can understand. Do you watch Disney Plus? Netflix? You pay for Netflix every month without fail, and suddenly The Office is gone. They still have it, but now that show is a privilege you only get for living in the right country. That's how the world works. Just because you pay for a service doesn't mean you get to use it, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's why I use private internet access. PIA is a virtual private network. It reroutes your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel, changing your digital location and letting you access the entire streaming library you paid for. Do you mean The Office, Rick and Morty, Friends, Always Sunny? It's all there. Let freedom ring. Sign up for just $2 a month at piavpn.com/historyabridged and get 4 months free. You'll also get access to enhanced privacy and security with PIA's powerful encryption and no logs policy. Thanks to PIA for making this video possible. But more than anything, Lord North is a big ol' people pleaser. Parliament had gone through 6 different prime ministers in the 1760s, so here's a guy who everybody likes. He's going to listen to everybody's ideas and serve the will of Parliament, and things will finally be stable. Or at least they would have been if Lord North had lived at a different point in history. Now, with reference to our finances, the gentleman will consider... Sir, we accidentally shot 11 Americans. My friends, we may have to table the debate on finances today. Tensions in Boston over Britain's taxes had led to a crowd of a few hundred people harassing British troops with clubs and stones, which led to somebody opening fire on the crowd. But North had an answer to this. Among other actions, Lord North asks himself, what is at the heart of this issue? What would the colonists do if they had representation? The answer, of course, cut taxes. He leads Parliament in repealing all of those various taxes that had upset the colonists so much, except for a small tax tax on tea. Not much, just a little token to remind the Americans their representation means diddly. Problem solved! I'm being facetious, of course, but for 3 years it looked like things in America were starting to simmer down. Then, in 1773, Lord North would step on a diplomatic landmine. You might have heard of the East India Company, the private company in London that owned all of India. They were going through tough times, but they were definitely too big to fail. So in a stroke of genius, Lord North passes the Tea Act. Instead of going through London, the East India Company can sell their tea directly to British colonies. He even cut the tax on tea to just 3 pennies. The result? The company is saved, Americans get way cheaper tea, and everyone is happy. Good news, colonists! Tea is super cheap now! Oh no! Stop! There's 10,000 pounds of tea in that tea! What Lord North hadn't counted on was the fact that for the last 3 years, the Americans weren't drinking British tea. They were drinking Dutch tea brought in by smugglers because it was cheaper. But now that British tea was cheaper, that meant the smugglers would be driven out of business, and the Americans would have to actually pay the tea tax, which again was still cheaper but not very democracy. North is shocked and frankly offended that the American colonists reacted so poorly to his thoughtful gift, and so he issues some new acts. He shuts down Boston Harbor until Massachusetts pays back the cost of all that tea they spilled, and to make doubly sure they comply, he replaces all of their elected officials with appointed ones and tells them, "You can have your democracy back when you're ready to use it responsibly." Is what we'll tell them, eh? This was supposed to put Massachusetts in timeout and scare all of the other colonies into behaving. Instead, the colonies all got together and formed a Congress. Okay, we need to make Britain undo all that stuff it just did. Remember, there are no bad ideas. I propose we boycott all British goods. Yeah, I'm liking it. Good stuff. We should form a militia! Yeah, just in case. Ooh, militia. Okay, I'm really feeling it. What if we got representation? Huh? That's what this has been about, right? What if we worked with Britain to create our own parliament, with our own representatives? Okay, let me see a show of hands. No, I'm sorry, that's a bad idea. As far as I can tell, this was the only time the American colonies seriously considered trying to solve the question of taxation without representation by getting representation. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Atlantic, the British Parliament received word that their colonies had united together and were getting militias ready, just in case. And they have to make their own call. What did I tell you? Huh? What did I tell you? Look, we can still fix this, but I'm telling you, this is our last chance. We sign this. We declare that we'll never send troops in peacetime, and we'll never tax them unless we get their consent. Interesting. Show of hands. Okay. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but we're gonna do my thing instead. His thing was also not to expand the number of seats in Parliament, which, am I crazy or why did no one ever suggest this? His thing was to declare Massachusetts to be in open rebellion, and that any colony who contributes to the defense of the empire, cough cough put down the rebellion in Massachusetts, will be relieved of all taxes and duties. North's proposals were too little and too late. Blood was spilled in the first battle of the Revolution in April 1775, and the colonies were officially united. There was technically one last chance for peace. The US delivered a petition saying they were still open to working with Britain under the right conditions, but it arrived in London at the same time as an intercepted letter from American founding father John Adams talking about how pointless that peace offering was and how it was never ever going to happen in a million years. So Lord North and King George were not particularly inspired. So war was happening, and Lord North was not cut out for war, and he knew it. He actually went to King George asking to resign, but King George said, "What? Buddy, hey, come on. If you quit, you'd be replaced with somebody I don't like, and my heart would be broken forever. You can't do that to old Georgie." So North stays in office. His first attempt at resolving the situation was a peace conference in 1776, but by the time it got filtered through everybody who wanted a say, the only terms Britain could offer were, "Boy, have I got a deal for you. You won't regret this. It's we can pardon you for treason and put everything back the way it was at the start of the war. What do you say? Things were not going North's way. In 1777, he received word that the Americans won an all-important battle at Saratoga, proving to the world that they could win this thing. North is afraid that France smells blood in the water. The French, of course, were just as deep in debt as the British, and another war would decimate their finances. But...
Your Majesty, we mustn't. Turgot, who am I? The King of France, Your Majesty. Correct. And if there is one thing that I share with each and every one of my forefathers for the last 1,000 years, the very essence of what it is to be French, it is this. With God as my witness, when I see an opportunity to stick it to the British, I am going to take it.
Your Majesty, France is going to declare war. If we ever hope to fly our colours over the 13 colonies again, we have to be prepared for some major concessions. Nope. I am clearly not the man you want for this job then, Your Majesty. I shall pack my things and nope. I'll do my best. It was said of North that he would do more to please anyone who withheld their friendship than he would do for his actual friends. Sure enough, France joins the war, and in 1778, North arranges another peace conference. He is finally authorized to offer everything America wanted in 1775. But as usual, it was too little, too late. America in 1778 will settle for nothing less than independence. And besides that, the whole thing turned into a complete fiasco. He sent a young and inexperienced diplomat who first tried and failed to bribe some congressmen, and then spouted off enough anti-French remarks to get challenged to a duel in the middle of negotiations. The British Army, meanwhile, has to be diverted to the Caribbean to stop the French from taking over those colonies. Which, don't tell anyone, but they might have been a little more important. Lord North spends most of the war having a nervous breakdown. He's constantly going back and forth between, Parliament is leaving me, I'm deserted, disgraced. If Your Majesty wishes it, I will serve wherever you see fit. I've brought ruin to king and country. I told you I wanted to quit, so don't blame me for doing a bad job. I'm doing a terrible job. I can't take the pressure anymore. The other shoe is gonna drop. Everyone will know I'm a fraud and I'll be kicked out of office and my friends will abandon me. They'll be right to abandon me and you're going to hate me and... Deep breaths, deep breaths. If you won't fire me, then kill me. We still have one general that's winning, right? Cornwallis? Yeah! As long as Cornwallis is fighting, then it's not over. Cornwallis was defeated in 1781. Oh God. It's all over. North tried once more to resign. Despite the wishes of King George, Parliament finally sued for peace with America and passed a vote of no confidence in Lord North. North's worst fears had come to pass. America was given complete independence and extremely favorable terms. Lord North's legacy was ruined, and he's remembered to this day as one of the worst prime ministers of all time. But he was finally free of the fear that held him back. He kept his seat in Parliament, and when the time came to promote someone new to power, North made the call to support the choice he thought was right. George III told him, "Him! Northie, how could you do this to me? If you pick him, I won't be your friend anymore. I won't be your friend anymore." But North told him, "Oh, really? Well, tough." George III tended to his kingdom and his large brood of children. Known affectionately as Farmer George, he watched over the empire's rebound with a keen eye, until a mysterious illness knocked him off his rocker. And as for those rascally Americans, they went on to lay the bedrock of a new nation. America expanded its horizons and went on to eclipse Great Britain as the world's leading superpower. And we can all point to Lord North and laugh.